Coming up on this edition of Second Alarm, we've got the sights and sounds of the second annual Kids Junior Firefighter Academy. We'll meet a 3-year-old who loves firefighters so much that he donated his pennies to the Spokane Fire Department Foundation. Plus, we will train with the Tech Rescue Team as they practice rescuing people from towers and trees. Those stories and more coming up on this edition of Second Alarm. Hello, and welcome to this edition of Second Alarm. I'm Community Risk Reduction Manager Jamie McIntyre. This September, the Spokane Fire Department held its second annual Kids Junior Fire Academy. It was an opportunity for kids of all ages to learn about fire safety and what firefighters do.
One more way. There you go. Well, it's Saturday morning. We're down at Riverfront Park for the Junior Firefighter Academy, where kids can come of all ages and see what it's like to actually be a firefighter and put their hands on equipment and tools that firefighters actually use.
You're doing great! Go, 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 go! You got it! Keep going! Almost there! Almost there! Keep going!
Inside River Park Square, they can practice hands-only CPR. They can take a picture with Sparky. Out here, next door, we have several apparatus set up. We have a ladder truck set up and a fire engine or a pumper and a combat challenge course that in most cases firefighters actually have to perform before they get hired to do the job. And so kids have an opportunity to go through those stations. We have a cone course that they have to navigate. There's a dummy drag that simulates, you know, pulling a person out of a dangerous situation.
Grab hold on the sweat.
Then they move on to a hose station where they operate a hose and a nozzle and put out simulated fire. And then there's also a sled station where it's a striking station where they use a small sledge that simulates using an axe or forcible entry tools.
You're all buckled in.
Kids have a great time. I think it's wonderful for the parents also to have some exposure to what firefighters do, and then for us, you know, the message is to educate people about what we do and give kids an opportunity to see what it would be like to actually be a firefighter.
High five!
Spokane Fire Department takes a very active role in engaging with the community. Really at every opportunity. You know, we were recently at the schools for the first day of school to welcome kids. We participate in neighborhood events on a regular basis. I mean, it's really critical to us and our mission to engage the community and be an integral part of the community.
One special 3-year-old boy who attended this year's academy is Emerson. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, they're gonna go help somebody.
They're gonna go help people.
Emerson loves anything and everything to do with firefighting. For the last couple of months, Emerson has been saving his pennies by completing chores. He wanted to donate his pennies to the Spokane Fire Department, all $11 worth. He recently visited Station 1 to give his hard-earned pennies to Chief Schaefer on behalf of the Spokane Fire Department Foundation.
Very excited to be here today. He loves the fire trucks. He loved turning on the sirens, so this is huge for him. He said that the fire department helps people, and so he wants to give them pennies so they can keep helping people.
4 years ago, a citizen responder who was notified via the PulsePoint app and Engine 1 saved the life of 6-week-old Nolan. This fall, on his first day of preschool, Engine 1 arrived at Nolan's house to take him to school. The same firefighters who saved his life just 4 years ago. Here is more about Nolan's story and PulsePoint, the life-saving smartphone app that allows everyday citizens to provide life-saving assistance to victims of cardiac arrest.
All of a sudden, 6-week-old Noah's not breathing. He's not breathing.
What's the location of your emergency?
131 South Sherman.
I remember that call coming out. Station 1's out of area. It's going to be at least 8 to 10 minutes before we get a resource there.
I was working in my shop. My cell phone made a noise that I hadn't really heard before.
Things were dire.
We have an infant who's not breathing.
The PulsePoint app resides as a part of your smartphone. It sends an alert that there's a cardiac arrest in your nearby area. Do you want to respond? When the need arises, that's your chance to truly be a hero and save somebody's life.
Pulled the phone out of my pocket and looked, and it said CPR needed, and it was a block and a half away.
I saw my child there limp and blue.
Are they awake at all?
No.
I remember screaming, "Help me," somehow, and I was helpless to help him.
It's today the last day that he'll be alive.
I just saw him come running in. He got there somehow. He found out about it. I didn't know how at that point.
And I picked him up and started doing some nose and mouth breathing for him. You could see the look in his eyes. He was like, help me, help me. Just wanted him to start breathing. The ambulance got there. And as soon as I handed him off to the paramedic, the baby started crying. And we both looked at each other and went, oh, that's a good sign.
The PulsePoint app really allows us to leverage the benefit of the people in the community that want to be a part of the solution. He was the closest resource.
Everybody should look up to Jeff. He's a hero. He's a miracle. If he didn't have that app, Nolan might not be here.
Nolan's 3 years old. He's all that's good and none that isn't. A phone saved my son's life.
He's overcome so much in his little life. I mean, he's fought to be here. We call him the little warrior.
Mental health responses have been increasing in Spokane and nationally for the last few years. Currently, SFD averages more than 9 behavioral-related responses each day. With the ultimate goal of providing the right care in the right setting for people experiencing behavioral health issues, the Spokane Fire Department has partnered with Frontier Behavioral Health to staff a behavioral response unit. Here is more on the program.
He's being cleared in by PD. They're out with the patient. They have him kind of corralled in, they said, on the south part of the complex.
This project started because Frontier Behavioral Health had an interest in how we can divert people from emergency departments who don't necessarily have a medical need, but may have a behavioral health need instead.
Dispatch, BRU responding from the training center.
The genesis is the idea that we can make a difference by addressing problems in a completely different way.
Well, I got a friend here. Okay, her name's Sarah. Is it all right if she talks to you a little bit?
Once we started the Ride Along program, what we found was this combination of a mental health professional and a fire department personnel made a difference.
The relationship there is symbiotic. They complement each other.
We'd really like to help you meet that goal today.
My role as the mental health professional is really, when that medical piece has been ruled out, is really to kind of help get folks connected to the services that are most appropriate to meet their goals and needs.
You know, you go to a call and it just could be like, you know, chest pain or difficulty breathing, and it could be anxiety. And then they're like, then you hear the whole story. It's like, oh, I don't feel well, and I've been sad, and they don't know that if they reach out, they will get help.
And now we can address that individual's needs with one contact. That's phenomenal. We are saving costs in terms of our time, saving costs in terms of taking someone to an emergency department.
We can't continue to send the big red fire truck to address the problem. We're not equipped with the right skills to really move that needle on the gauge of mental health problems in Spokane. It needs to be collaborative, it needs to be an interdisciplinary approach, and it needs to be now.
I think that we are groundbreaking. I think that we have come up with a concept that so far the data is showing it's making a difference.
We're constantly evolving, we're constantly learning, and we're constantly making improvements, because every small improvement that we can make matters to people when they're in crisis.
The Spokane Fire Department's tech rescue team is ready to respond whenever people need help. We caught up with the team during a recent training to find out what it takes to rescue people in high-risk environments.
He's roped in, so we could just tie in to the red and the blue lines with our own lines and just lower him down on his own manual.
We're here at Vista's Jack Stewart training facility. They've afforded us the opportunity to train in a real-world environment. We're training today on a BPA transmission tower. These types of rescues are a low-frequency, high-risk event for us. This affords us an opportunity to train in a real-world environment. Today's scenario, we have our lead instructor, Mike Forbes, simulating a trespasser that we'll be rescuing today from the tower. We'll also do another scenario where we're rescuing an injured Avista worker. We do need a lot of trust in our equipment and our personnel and our skill sets. So that's why we're out here today, to hone our skills and better prepare ourselves for the rescue. This afternoon we'll be working in Finch Arboretum, simulating an injured arborist rescue. We'll be climbing the trees, making access to the patient, and removing them safely to the ground.
The unique thing about tree rescue is it's an environment where typically we'll get above the patient and we'll be able to just lower ourselves down to them. Here they're up above us, and we have to figure out how to get up into the tree, which uses techniques that we don't usually use in the fire service. We're using conventional climbing spurs and working up the tree, and then establishing anchors up in the tree so that we can then pick the person off and lower them down to the ground. It's just a little more complicated and a lot of work too, just physically. We work with the city arborists on trees that they're going to take out and create into wildlife trees, or they're, in this case, there's 2 trees that are right up against the road that they plan on removing here in the next year or so. And so I work with them closely to get trees for this type of training that are slated to be removed. Yeah, we don't go around to any city park and just climb on trees, because the spurs do quite a bit of damage to the tree. So they are all slated to be removed at some point in the near future.
All right, ready to belay?
I mean, we could simulate this type of a training in a training facility on concrete, but working on the trees, getting scratched up by them, trying not to get scratched up by them, dealing with the elements, those definitely add to the realism, and that's what we want to try and recreate something as much as possible.
Plan A is going to work. I'm going to have to lower myself down to him and mule off his ID.
Most of the calls that the tech rescue team, hazmat team, water team, they are of that nature, and so they require a lot of training for maybe 1, 2, 3 calls a year, but they still happen, and so we still have to be prepared for them.
Cardiac arrest is the #1 killer of firefighters on the fire ground. The Spokane Fire Department's training division recently conducted training drills for all SFD firefighters on how to quickly remove a downed firefighter from the fire scene and start CPR with minimal delay. Training Captain Ty Bruner has more.
Ready?
Command copy. Mayday's been located.
What we're doing is putting into practice firefighter initiation of Mayday, extrication, and transition into pit crew CPR.
CPR going? Right, compressions.
We're running a scenario where a fire attack team gets trapped in a basement. We actually got a real structure with a real basement filled up full of fake smoke, so you can't see, so there's no visibility whatsoever. We have a firefighter that gets separated down in the basement, has to be found and extricated, and then removed from the structure, and recognizing that he's unresponsive, stripping him out of his gear and starting CPR. This is valuable training to us because cancer is the overall #1 killer of firefighters, but cardiac arrest is the #1 killer of firefighters on the fire ground.
You guys good? Yep. 1, 2, 3, go.
Good. We need to make sure that we're ready for it, because if it's killed that many guys, there's no reason to think that it can't happen to us. And pit crew CPR is saving more lives than anything else. We need to be able to readily transition from an extrication mode to a first aid mode. We got to start compressions and we can't stop compressions. And the only way to really do that is to create a stable working platform, and that means no gear on that guy. And if you can take a guy out of a structure that's fully packed up and on air with a full set of bunker gear on and remove all that stuff in 30 seconds or less, you're giving him about as good a chance as you're going to get.
That's all for this edition of Second Alarm. If you have any questions or comments, please drop us a line at fire@SpokaneFire.org or give us a call at 509-625-7000.